Welcome to That Card Collectors Podcast with your host, Ian Taylor.
Hello, welcome, felicitations, everybody. Welcome to That Card Collectors Podcast. I'm Ian Taylor, and I'm your host. And joining me this week is Keith.
Good morning.
You sound really thrilled to be up and about.
I just woke up 20 minutes ago, practically 20 minutes
Oh,
ago.
fair enough. All right. And Josh.
What it is.
Josh. Now, I should mention that Keith is currently being battered by a storm. And I don't mean an X-Men character from the African plains. I do mean a genuine storm. So if Keith suddenly disappears, that's why.
We'll know why.
That's why.
Yeah.
Because
He has fallen on the house and things have gotten bad.
Now I can't stop thinking about the first version of that, what that would look like.
What?
He's getting beaten by storm. It's kind of...
Yeah, right, Josh. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm definitely rusty. I'm rusty. This Wesley might be joining us. I think he might have some internet problems that related to Keith's windiness. Who knows? And Jason, fuck, I'm on the whiskey already. Jason has had to bow out at the 11th hour, which is a real shame. So apologies, those who care, for no podcast for a few weeks. That's because I had a family bereavement and, quite frankly, just didn't really want to sit down and do this for a bit, which is fair enough. But back on the horse and all that. So yes, away we go. Are you boys familiar with BBC News?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Do you ever watch BBC News?
Not specifically. Clips might come my way and things like that, but I don't have it on. I don't have it
All
on.
right. It could be an interesting perspective for you, actually. But they do this thing. They do this thing on weekday evenings called The Context, and it's supposed to be like, just their way of framing stuff. And they usually for the second hour have American panelists on. There's usually someone from both sides of the divide, and they often talk about world and specifically American political stuff. And at the end of that second hour of the show, with these panelists, they do this thing called Time for the Panel, which is why every person that they've got on that particular episode, if you like, has a topic that they want to talk about. It might be a news article they've seen. It might be something like entertainment or pop culture wise. It could be something political that they haven't touched on. And they kind of get into it. And depending on who the guests are, there's varying levels of teeth baring, shall we say, and shaking of heads. Because partisan, it certainly is. From the guest point of view, the BBC try to be very, very neutral on all this sort of stuff, as you can understand. Anyway, so I thought we'd effectively rip that off, and kind of just all come with a kind of topic to talk about this week. It's a real shame that Wesley's not here because Wesley had a really good one. So I'm hoping Wesley manages to find his way back to the land of the internet, but. Keith,
he might still jump in.
He might still jump in. Yes, he might still jump in. Where's he live? Ohio. Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
so,
I don't think his issue is related to mine. That's for sure.
No. I mean, it could be. I mean, what do they need to connect to the internet over there? 2 cows and a goat, or is that more like rural Pennsylvania? I can't remember now. But I'm sure he'll figure it out.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably really insulting for hundreds of thousands of people. And none of those people probably listen to this podcast, because if we had hundreds of thousands of listeners, I'm sure we'd all be in a much better place. Anyway, right. So maybe Wesley will jump on. But Keith, you first. You posted something on Instagram the other week that I know we haven't got anymore because it's a story and it's gone. But the general kind of ethos of it would be pretty good. So lead on, sir, with your topic or thought piece.
So generally, in that post, it was a story, I think, and someone had been caught doing something shady with brakes, or at least allegedly been doing something shady with brakes, and the first reaction is always not just to defend that person, but if anybody questions someone new to the hobby, we're immediately kind of shut down and told that we're not being positive instead of saying, well, what is this person's intentions? And now this is, I can count on almost two hands now as an instance where someone in the hobby brought someone from another part of the hobby, of a different hobby, into the Marvel scene and got burned in some way.
Mhm.
And that's why people are so skeptical when someone new comes along, whether it's someone with a bunch of money or someone that's an established breaker for something else, or someone just random that you never expected, like a car guy that suddenly decides he wants to buy cards. Like we've watched each of some people that we're friends with even make mistakes by just bringing someone along for the ride, and then that person does something, and now you're co-signed, you're attached to that. So are you complicit
Mm.
now, or were you an idiot? And either one, is that acceptable, right?
Mm.
So there's a certain level of vetting that needs to happen when someone from outside of the hobby comes into our hobby that we don't allow. They just, they have a bunch of hits, or they have money, so they're breaking stuff, so let's watch what they're doing. And all the eyes go over there, right? And it's very easy to quickly say, let me attach myself to this person, get those clicks myself. But then, a month or so down the road, a year later, suddenly they're producing their own cards, or they're doing shady practices with their breaks and sending things that aren't what they want on the breaks. Like, it's crazy. And part of it is, what Whatnot's done. I say years ago, and it's not that long ago. I've not been in this hobby too long, but years ago, when I was just getting into this hobby, there was very little places to break online. Like, it was difficult to do. There was an Instagram streamer or two that did it. I've talked about Ian from Carnes and Metals at nauseum, because he was one of the first people that I found and just kind of latched onto. And then until Whatnot came along, where anybody can suddenly be a breaker with
Mhm.
no vetting, really. Like, Whatnot has a process, but the process is click a couple things and say yes or no. You could be attached to someone that is just full of crap. So
Mm.
I guess, as I went on a little tirade there, I want to let you guys digest that and see what you think. But that's basically the ethos of what I was saying, is that we need to be careful with who we allow into our hobby, because they represent us, right? And if we attach ourselves to them, they especially represent us. So if we want to be inclusive to all, I 100% am down for that. Yes, everyone should have a chance in here. But before we start getting crazy and, making someone the next messiah of cards, like, let's find out what those really are and what they want.
I
And that's
like that.
that's my soapbox.
I like that. I like that last part especially because it implies elevation, and I think that's the key thing here, is that that collectors come into the hobby, collectors go out of the hobby. And when we're talking about the hobby, I think we're specifically maybe talking about Marvel cards here, but I think it's true of wider non-sports, and could well be sports as well, because I'm pretty sure I've seen the same thing happen on the sports side from the
Yeah.
number of feeds that I follow. And it's an interesting one. I guess it's akin to listen, I didn't go to university or college, as you guys call it over there. I mean, I went to further education, but I didn't do that. I think it's akin to if you're having a party in your frat house and you bring someone along, you're vouching for them.
Absolutely.
It's fair.
So if they suddenly rehypnol the women's netball team captain and are discovered, filming. Sorry, I'm going to stop that example. But you
Sure.
know where I was possibly going. They were doing something really heinous, yeah, and they got
Yeah.
caught doing it. Then that reflects badly on you. Not that I'm suggesting that anyone in the hobby hypnoled the women's netball team captain and started filming them. But
Keith
maybe
is
that happened. Maybe that
he's
happened.
absolutely right here. This has been in the Wild West kind of atmosphere that's been created, and the growth we've seen in such a short period of time. Stuff like this is the unfortunate side effects. People that carry weight and have mass, and they come in from other places. Sometimes, if you don't take the time, you think that you don't know exactly how they got to where they got in the first place, how they treat their own hobby, whether they come from sports or other collectibles, But Keith's right. It's often guys that are into something else that get pulled into here. And you know, when you vet, and get to know some people, that if it really means something to them, there's a line in a basically a checks and balances, like a code of ethics, that you care so much about the hobby. There's things you can't do. You can't break relationships. You can't burn bridges here. It's a small, close, tight knit, network. And when some of these people come in, and I've seen exactly what Keith explained, the same scenario happen over and over again. And I would pay attention to a few of these people because they had a lot of clout behind them from what they'd previously done. A lot of followers, and they catch attention, stuff like that. And so naturally, in everything I've ever seen grow as much as I've seen this hobby in just the last 10 years, it is near impossible to bat 1,000 and to be able to keep all these guys out. But to keep a close eye and try to make sure when you bring somebody to the group, to MCCW or whatever it is, even MMC, kind of go, it doesn't take but a little bit of time to say, hey, listen, this is something that means something to me. This group, the networking, the cards, this stuff is very hard to come by. And if you burn some of these relationships, you're not going to have the same opportunities in this hobby.
Another thing that happens too is when a behavior is identified as something that's not quite acceptable to the masses, they take their ball and go somewhere else. And it almost it becomes divisive to the hobby, because now it's okay, well, you don't agree with what I think, I'm just going to go over here and go to a like-minded place where everyone agrees with me. It's really a microcosm of what happened in American politics today, but that is not the place.
Or make your own make your own place where everyone has to think your way or they're out.
Right. Which is it's healthy. There should be a gathering for for like-minded individuals at all times. But once you go that direction, you now close off the other side altogether. And now you're not communicating anymore. And now you're creating rifts, and now there's factions and things like that. And this is freaking cards, guys. We don't need that kind of crap.
I know.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, it's just what ends up happening in any online community. I mean, I've been through this from anywhere between IRC coding and StarCraft leagues and crap like that to this, where just people break off into different factions out of nowhere.
You've almost got a couple of stratas of things here. So I'm kind of thinking, because every day there's going to be new people coming into the hobby, and some people just either don't last long in some communities or don't last long in the hobby because just generally in life they're idiots. That happens all the time. So I think we're talking about that slightly less as we're talking about people who may be hobby tourists. Maybe is a good word. Especially if they've got a wad.
I like to call them hobby leeches.
Hobby, no, yeah, okay, all right. I was being generous, but we can go with that. I think it's what I find interesting. What I find interesting is the different tolerances of what is and isn't acceptable behaviour. So, I mean, we obviously had a big incident early this year that you alluded to with some counterfeit cards and someone with a very big bankroll. But there are instances where people have been proven, and I've mentioned this before, and I'll talk about it again because it is a good example of how some people will kind of have blind loyalty to someone who has proven to steal, who has proven to scam, and they are, for want of a better word, shunned, as everyone kind of turns their back on them. But there are some people who continue to engage and enable and look after that person. So I think for me that's a line crossed as well. I mean, people, you can you can choose to affiliate yourself wherever you want to, online and offline. That's fine. But I think if you actively support someone who has proven to, not once but more than once, scam and attempt to scam others in the hobby, I think that needs to be called out.
Absolutely.
I absolutely think it needs to be called out, and I think it's it's a shame that people do that. I mean, like I said, you've got the people who do wrong because they do that because that's what they do. They scam, they cheat, they fake stuff, whatever it is. And then you've got the people who don't necessarily do wrong. They're just idiots. So you do
Yeah.
have that kind of dividing line there. So
that line is the
one of
ill
these
will
things
and
is not like the other. Yeah, it's
right.
the
It's ill will
intent.
and bad intent. Right. You
Yeah,
don't have that with some people. They're just naturally not paying attention to stuff that
yeah.
you should be when you're dealing with these cards, especially as they
Mm,
get more and more valuable and are rare.
mm.
But yeah, it's pretty clear to see when people are doing it intentionally, have a history of it. It's not too difficult to either tell them, hey, you've got to stop this. You got to work on this. This is how we do things here. You can phrase it however you want, but if it comes from a nice place, then you don't have anything to worry about. Tell people when they're doing this so they don't get booted. I've had conversations with people who've got booted from this group, and not all of them are upset. I've had conversations with many guys that are like, I screwed up. I was having a bad couple weeks. I did a few things that was out of my norm. And I wish I could get back in. So not all people have been. They understand,
and it's easy to slip up too in some of the stupidest ways. Like I had a post flagged and taken down 2 weeks ago, and I was mind boggled, and I'm like, and embarrassed because for a brief time I was a mod in the group. So I'm like, how did I mess up a rule?
Right.
Oh wow.
So it's just funny like that. And we've seen it from all angles too. Like there is innocence out there. Like there is sometimes where, and I don't know how you treat that. Like where someone didn't properly vet somebody, figured it out, and then quickly detached themselves from that whole thing. Now, what there is a lack of is accountability with that sometimes, where there is never a statement. There's never a, hey, I don't quite agree with what this person did. And that's something that I think is missing in those instances. But at least, I don't think that in many cases that the people that have brought these other people on have done it intentionally for the most part. I don't feel a lot of complacency. Is that a word? Complicit is what I was going for, but complacency. Is that a word?
Yeah, you're there.
No, not complacency. Complicit. But with
I think the other word has some positioning within this as well. But yes,
I do want to call out one person that I could, because I was racking my brain over like someone that has come from the outside that has been great. And he still isn't. He's not fully in, but he's in to a little bit. He talks to us, and he's a good dude. Is Manu 9.9? I think he's been I think he's a gem of a human being. And I really enjoy him, his input, his thought processes on things. He's great to listen to. So I do want to make sure that we also give credit if there's someone good that was brought in.
I tell you what I like about Manu, and hello Manu, if you're listening. I don't know if you listen, but he acknowledges that he doesn't know it all, and he takes time to learn and ask questions. And I think a lot of the time, people will, especially people with platforms, will be doing content or whatever, and they I don't know what it is, but the best thing to do is, if you don't know something, is to just acknowledge you don't know. Maybe find out. But I've seen so many people talking about stuff who have blagged it basically and put out stuff that's not true on content. And I just think it's, I mean, you can make an error, that's one thing, but I can spot now with some people that you're more familiar with are kind of blagging it a little bit, and misremembering is something else. I think there's a fine line between it. But I love the fact that Manu is capable of just being humble and saying, look, I don't know everything. And I tell you what, this week I've learned a heck of a lot from past couple of weeks. Actually, there's a new guy in MCCW, and he's posting just show posts of really obscure 90s promos. I don't know if you've seen any of his posts.
I have seen some of those posts.
Yeah. And I'm looking at some of them are very local, as in they're literally the back of cereal box things, which I wouldn't have ever had in the UK. But some of them are the more well-known things, like the Haynes X-Men promos. And I never realised that there were two sets of them. One of them was withdrawn, and the regular one was allowed out there. And funnily enough, it's the withdrawn one that's quite easy to get these days. But I hadn't realised after all these years that there were 2 sets of 3. I thought there was just 3 of them. So there's always stuff out there to learn, and some of those 90s promos are incredible. Have you ever seen the Pizza Hut? Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent now. But have you ever seen the Pizza Hut ones that have
I
got
had the Pizza
Sienkiewicz
Hut
art?
ones. I had them.
Oh, they're gorgeous. There's only 2 of them, but they're
Couldn't-
lovely.
Couldn't tell you where they are.
No, well, there's others out there, Keith. I'm sure you can reacquire them if you
Yeah.
so chose. They're probably blowing down your street as we speak. But yeah, and so I think it's lovely when someone comes in who, like Manu, who is just kind of like just eager to learn and just like, yeah, cool, okay. And because he's got such a big knowledge of the comics and the art and the different editions and the things that he's really into, he I got a lot of time for the guy. I really have.
And then twofold on this too now. So now with this kind of ideology where people are coming up with what's going on with Topps, you've got a monsoon of people coming in that have never broken the product, for one.
Yep.
Of anything Marvel. 2, you've got a new stream of people that are buying product, right? And everything is just upside down and left and right. Like, just because that box was $900 doesn't mean that terrible sketch is worth $900. The people are pricing
yeah
to that. But anyway, going back is just saying, be careful, because there's going to be a slew of new people breaking, and we talk about it all the time about being careful with breaks and being responsible and stuff like that. But this is the same thing. It's going to be more people coming in and attaching themselves to someone, and all of a sudden, this person that never knew this breaker is now highlighting all their stuff, sharing their stuff, having them on their channel, going onto their channel. And meanwhile, this guy could have been a piece of crap sports breaker for 20 years. But because you don't know who the hell he is, you've now attached yourself to him.
Yes.
And you brought your people over with him or her.
Interesting.
Right? And now you've exposed that person to a whole new audience to do their scamminess to.
Yeah. Whatnot has no vetting process other than 1,000 items sold.
I just see a lot of guys putting their credibility at risk. I don't understand it.
Yeah. Once you hit that item sold mark for Whatnot, you're allowed to do box breaks.
Mm-hmm.
That's all there is. As soon as you hit the item sold mark, which I'm sure has changed, but it was $9.99 before,
something like that.
And once you've done this, you can do box breaks of any product.
Really? Yeah, and all you have to do is list a bunch of base cards for a nickel.
Wow. I mean,
you just rip through a whole thing of base cards in 2 or 3 shows, and boom, now you're a box breaker.
Yep.
Wow.
So there is a fast track to it. Right. And that's what's kind of creating that atmosphere and Whatnot is people are coming from IPs that they're not related. They don't have the legs in Marvel, and then here we go.
We've seen it. There's people that were Pokemon guys that came into this hobby and were like, wait, what's going on? And they had so many questions and didn't know what they were doing, and got their bearings and decided to do what they're doing. And this is before Whatnot even. And now they're just like kind of really vetted into what they're doing and knowing what to do with Marvel. So you take a day one product and throw a sports breaker at it and say, hey, break this Marvel stuff, and don't understand that just because it's a one-on-one, Namor, I don't know why his name hit my brain, doesn't mean it's going to be worth the same amount as a one-on-one Spider-Man at all.
I know. And it's the whole don't even get me started on one-on-one comic cuts.
Well, everything's also, it feels like everything's a one-on-one nowadays.
Everything's a one-on-one. You get a one-on-one, you get a one-on-one, you get a one-on-one.
It feels like some of these coalitions have created many subsets of one-on-ones.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's still not what we've once again divvied outside of the lines.
Yeah. Well, if we
need to return back to the main story.
We do.
I went off on a side mission.
So I've gone off on at least 2 so far this episode. We're only 20 minutes in. Yeah. No, I did have something to say off the back of that, but it's gone. It's gone out of my head. So forgive me if it returns. Then I will launch it loud. I think have we chewed over that one enough? Should we move on to the next topic?
Sure.
What say you? Shall we have some soothing music while we move
Segue?
on to the next topic?
Yeah. That's nice.
Oh, by the, you know what that reminds me of? Just a little.
Not
Ian,
feeling it. Not
are you
feeling
a
it.
Tron guy?
Am I Tron guy?
Oh.
I saw the new one yesterday.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say no. Really. I mean, obviously, I saw the original back in the '80s and loved it. Saw it loads of times. I remember watching the second one, 15 years ago now, and just being like, meh. And I've never seen it since. So, you know, I mean, I've seen the trailer for this one, but
It was very good.
You didn't see Legacy? Right. The one that was out like
that's the second one. He said was like 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah. 15 years ago. Came out in 2010, I think.
So I still have Legacy as my favorite, but I'm partial to Olivia Wilde.
Yeah.
Oh, who isn't?
As far as just a general movie to go see, if you were just to say, okay, I'm not a fan of Tron, I just want to see these, I think 3 is the best one.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was very good.
Listen, if it's got Jeff Bridges in, I'm there. So, you know.
Yeah.
Which I kind of regret because he did that R.I.P.D. film a few years ago with Ryan Reynolds, and that was shocking. Anyway, you see, I was hoping for better music than that. I've got all these buttons here in StreamYard that I can press.
That's why you need the Tron
next time.
on deck.
Next time, I'm going to press a different button, and we'll see what music we get. Right, Josh, did you bring a topic, or shall I go on to mine? I wasn't sure if you had one.
No, you go ahead. I just had a few things I pulled out for the comp conversation.
Oh, okay, cool. Right, well, that's what we're going to go into. So, there was a post in the EPAC group. Now, one of the guys who runs the EPAC group is a guy called Corey Cheng. Now, Corey, I don't know him at all, but he's a really nice guy in the interactions I've had with him. And he pulled up this. He does a lot of Photoshop stuff. And you remember we did that episode about EPAC being down, and it was like the 28 days later poster. Do you remember that?
Yes,
well, he did that. He photoshopped that. You know, when EPAC had been down for over 24 hours because someone unplugged it and couldn't figure out how to get it back on or whatever it was. So he did this post back in February actually, and I kept it back because I was like, I want to talk about this. And he'd done an image that's straight out of comping, that was done in the style of straight out of comps, which just made me laugh. And effectively speaking, it was a post on how to comp cards. And oh boy, wisdom lies within. Now, I'm not necessarily going to go through all the details of his post. Suffice to say, it was really, really good advice. Now, he did say, this is just my opinion. It's not perfect science. So feel free to comment with your own thoughts. And there's some interesting comments. But generally speaking, I don't think he's far off the mark, because you want to think that when someone has comped a card, that above all, whichever way they've done it in a fair way. Okay? That's, fair to you as a prospective buyer. That's obviously they're probably going to lean slightly in favor of them maybe making a little bit more. So they might overprice it slightly and build in a bit of wiggle room. But as long as they've got to whatever number that is in a fair manner, I think that's, you can't really argue with that. I think that's a reasonable expectation to have.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I will say that it is difficult to do on a product like, and I'm going to pick this because it's been burning up my eyeballs massively, the new Topps Dune set based on the 2 movies that have come out so far that dropped this week. And the autos are fire. They really are. There's Josh Brolin autos in there. There's Christopher Walken autos in there. There's Rebecca Ferguson, the main cast basically. And it looks really good. And, the base and the chase look okay, but it looks good. But it's literally just dropped. So I'm looking at all these cards on eBay and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to sit and watch, because I don't know where, there's obviously going to be a rush to get them. But a few people have tried to price them up and sell them on Facebook groups. And of course, they're kind of flying blind completely, because there are no comps as yet, or very, very few. Every day there'll be more. But that's only for new stuff. For stuff that's been out a while, you can usually do stuff. So obviously he's gone through this in a rather methodical way, and he's gone. Obviously, you want to look at the same card if you can to, and look at sold prices. Also, search Facebook groups as well as eBay if you can, if you have that ability, or if you have that bandwidth. If you can't find the same card, find the same set or similar parallel card. So if you can't find the same card in an at-25, look at another at-25 from the same set. You know, I remember we had that with metallurgies. We had that with kaleidoscopes. You know, you had that with the gold galleries. I'm picking on masterpieces ones because that's the kind of one that I think, especially with masterpieces 20, you saw some. And it speaks to your first point, actually, Keith. This is what I was going to say. With masterpieces 20, I had a whole load of Magic the Gathering people come into Marvel cards from off the back of Palumbo.
Friggin' riffraff.
Yeah, well, yeah. But the thing is, some of them have stuck around and are actually, have really gotten their heads into it and are like, now. Obviously, recently they've had a very happy time with Marvel and Magic the Gathering kind of merging in a way, which we were going to talk about, but I think we'll probably park that for this week. But we had a lot of that there with those guys coming in, and they were unsure how to price stuff that they were opening, and they were ripping a lot of product. They were ripping a lot of masterpieces 20. I mean, some of them went through like I know a couple of guys who came from the Magic side who did like double-digit cases in a weekend, and freely admitted to being degens off the back of it. But they all of a sudden they had loads of stuff, and they didn't know how to price it. And unfortunately, a couple of people did try and take advantage. But this is an example: same set or similar parallel card. He obviously, there's a sports aspect to this group as well. So he's got the same set, stroke, similar player, and he's looking for similar tiered player. And this is where it starts to get a little bit, obviously, performance based, but also subjective. But I think it's true for non-sports and certainly for Marvel. When you're looking at the characters, I mean, a Spider-Man's never going to be completely equal to a Jubilee, for example.
Right.
It's not the way it works. Sorry, Jubilee, you're a bit of a shit character, and I'm not going to pay that much for you. I genuinely don't get it. And some people try and price her as even a tier B. I think she's C at best, probably D. Yeah, she's a bit lame, and you can fight me on that one afterwards. But and he's gone through quite a lot of stuff. So I'm just reading his post. And there's a lot of words, quite frankly, and it's been a long couple of weeks, and I'm not really going to do words. But other factors you need to consider: recent sales, obviously timing. Is there kind of an event bump? And I think that's more sports related necessarily. If there's like a Super Bowl or the Cup he's referencing, so I'm assuming that's a hockey thing. Variations. So obviously if it's an auto card, for example, whether one's an inscription, one's not. If it's a swatch card, whether it's got certain things on it. An example from non-sports, some of the James Bond relics, where it's James Bond's white shirt, the ones that tend to go for a little bit more, the ones with bloodstains on them. Such is a good job that Rittenhouse did, is that they cut them up, and you get some of them. Obviously, it's not real blood, one would hope, but they tend to be worth a little bit more. So the reason I wanted to pick up on this is I have my own kind of theory about comping, and it does, I think, I probably to a fault drive myself a little bit potty trying to do this, but I'll always go and try and find between 3 and 5 comps, and I'll average them out, and I'll maybe take into account, the fees that the seller might have paid, and I'll use eBay Terapeak, which is now also called Product Research, because it takes into account best offers, only shows you stuff that's paid for, whereas I think 130 Point doesn't do one of those. I can't remember which one it is. So it's pretty good. Why I've raised this is I am absolutely sick of people saying last comp was this, so I'll offer that. Now, last comp is just one sale. Anyone who goes on last comp quite frankly, is a lazy ass. And I'm saying that because I think it's true. If you've just gone based on last comp and you haven't looked further, then I think you're being either if you're using that, especially as a buyer, to move someone's needle on a price, I think that's massively disrespectful to someone who might actually have spent some time looking over the last 5 comps, which might all be fairly recent.
The caveat to that is I would say if it's a 10 or under numbered card, because you've taken some of the population out.
Yes. No, I agree. I think there are,
I think that's the only
caveats
caveat
to that.
Yeah.
Yes, I think there are caveats to that. Yes, obviously, if it's a low pop, then you're on a slightly different playing field. I'll give an example: a purple PMG at 5 from Fleer Ultra Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think
Yeah.
10 would be the number for me that would start
Yeah.
to knock it down a bit. Anything else? But
Well,
yeah,
also-
you should always be taking average, in my opinion. You
I
take
think
the
so.
high-
I
you
think
take
so.
the highest, take the lowest, and you take
Yeah.
the middle, and you slap
There's a
them together.
flip side. There's a flip side to that low numbered thing, in that there's only so much availability, because a lot of things that are out of 5 and 10 will be in collections and they won't be moving anywhere.
No,
So,
your
and I'm
opportunities are low.
looking at
Well,
purple PMGs from Fleer Ultra Spider-Man as a prime example.
Yeah, and it'll be harder to get a comp because, like you said,
Yeah,
they'll be in a collection not
exactly.
moving. Yeah,
Exactly. So that notwithstanding, I just think for the majority of cards that aren't that, it does. I do find it a little bit cheeky when someone just goes last comp. It just has a single point of reference.
With non-sports, there's just a couple other factors, and Marvel always has that, the MCU and everything going on there. It's if there's about to be a release, are Doom cards going to be worth the same here soon? What they have been recently? So
a lot of people specking on Doom. I know that much.
Well, there's a lot of being about 2 years out in front of what they're doing. They kind of show their hand intentionally. And so what's happening with the main storylines of these things, that equates to how often is this character going to be in major, productions in the future? Yeah. How much screen time, face time are they going to get? And all this stuff I've seen affect wildly the value of B and C list characters. Massive. What were Guardians of the Galaxy stuff worth before those movies?
Yeah.
Some of the weight of what the major productions, whether it's a show, whether it's, the Loki show changed the value of Loki cards.
Very few properties have, in my opinion, moved that needle more than a 10% mark. I don't think I didn't see any new Groot collectors or I didn't see Star-Lord suddenly become, a badass.
I think with the MCU stuff, you are very, 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 very related to the popularity of the actor or actress who is playing that character.
Right. And Pratt's popular.
Yeah, he is. That's the thing.
But Hiddleston, I agree, he did move the needle. I think he moved the needle on Loki for sure.
I think Loki might actually be one of the very, very few. Thanos, possibly.
So like a Rocket Raccoon card in 1998 was going to do what it's doing
now. To be honest with you, on the comic side, yes. Rocket's not a great example, I don't think, because Rocket, Vin Diesel's never signed. No, sorry. You were talking about Groot before, weren't you? So I was thinking Vin Diesel. Bradley Cooper has now signed, but Bradley Cooper's auto will go for quite a bit now. I think it's you're looking at $300 to $600, depending on how lucky you can get it. But you get a Rocket, PMG. I don't know if he's had a PMG recently, and that's more connected with his tiering of characters in terms of comics. I don't think the fact that Bradley Cooper plays him in a film impacts on the value of his comic art.
Right.
Version.
He didn't change the character's worth, in my opinion. Like, so Gamora is another good example. Like, because there's a lot of X-Men crossover into Guardians, so I've read some stuff with Guardians. She's been a fucking badass in the comics, and she was a badass in the friggin' movie. Yes, the actor was awesome that played her, but she just played the part to the T, in my opinion. So she did the right thing. She didn't elevate the character.
Whereas Tom Hiddleston most certainly did.
Elevated
But
Loki.
just in
Oh,
a
good grief.
generality of like how often people are searching for Gamora cards or interested in Gamora cards before and after, there isn't a major difference in
No,
people's.
I'd put it at 10 to
Yeah.
15%.
I mean, I'm not seeing it. I
And
mean,
15 and
without
15
doing a
is-
massive study on it. I mean, I don't know if you could know for sure, but I think
I could be speaking out of my ass, but just from what I've seen.
yeah, I
It's
don't.
interesting to think about. I've always thought of it
Yeah.
as buying. I had to buy low before they hit, before the big storylines hit, because I found myself having much more difficult of an opportunity to get the card at a competitive price after the character's story just went wham and is in everybody's face now. And they just came from going to see their their favorite character in that movie 2 weeks ago.
Now, one thing I will say, I think there's another example. I think the Moon Knight series elevated that character's awareness massively.
I see people target sales posts around the release of movies for some of the rarest stuff they have, and they're intentionally selling it before the movie.
Yeah,
hits.
exactly. And I think, to be fair, I think any opportunity to try and maximize your visibility or your engagement on a sales post,
any free advertisement you get.
Yeah.
Disney sure seems to think so. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I'd say Moon Knight probably had a little bit of a tickle when that Oscar Isaac series came out. In terms of people getting into it.
I mean,
I think a lot more people know that the character exists after the show.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody bought Jessica Jones cards because Jessica Jones was a great series, though.
No,
and it was a great series.
Well, but I've always thought that character didn't have much, you know what I mean? So that when they do these like C projects and B projects, like some of them are just not going to have the good content, and even if it's out there in your face, doesn't make it good.
That was
but
a great
if
show.
It is a really great, it was. Some of them that really hit, man, I just see all these other people that didn't know about the character before, and now they're searching out collectibles in that character. That has to have some sort of
like Purple Man couldn't be the more lamest of characters, and he was fucking awesome in that show.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I would argue that and again, I've got no evidence for this, but I'd be exceptionally surprised if John Bernthald's portrayal of the Punisher hasn't had people go back and read the Garth Ennis stuff, hasn't had people pick up and buy a trade or an omnibus without having done so before, just they really dig the character and what Bernthald did with it. So I think Bernthald is like Hiddleston. He's another example of someone who's elevated that character, because you had those two movies. You had the Thomas Jane one in '99, and then you had the one with Ray Stevenson a few years after that.
And don't forget Dolph Lundgren.
Well, I was trying to, but now you bloody make me remember. Let's we'll leave Dolph where he belongs. Rocky IV and Masters of the Universe, and that's where he stays. And the Expendables. I've got a lot of time for the Expendables movies. The first one especially was an absolute hoot. But yeah, so I think there are probably more examples than we realise. But I would argue that the portrayal of Iron Fist probably actually damaged that character even more. I mean, I had little interest in the character even before, so I think it can go the other ways. We got a character. He's kind of been middling along. He's been a bit shit. Yeah, let's put him on screen. Oh yeah, he's still a bit shit. So
there's no set rule.
There isn't a set rule. I think it's
one way or the other.
It's alchemy and timing. I don't think it's certainly not as easy as a sports thing, for example, where someone's going to be playing a game in a certain series in baseball, and you know that after this they're either going to go one way or the other way because because that's how that game works and how the following works, and you're obviously going to get elements of it with NFL rookies, for example. Who might be hot out the gate. I've seen example of this. I've seen an awful lot of interest in Drake May cards on the UK NFL groups over the past few weeks. Loads of people posting, Has anyone got any
his
Drake
stock
May?
is
This, that, and the
rising.
other. Exactly. So you can kind of
yeah.
see it more in sports. I think it's easier to do. I think there's so much because sports is less about subjectivity. They either perform well or they don't. That's not subjective. That's a fact. Whereas in an art form like comics or movie, it's all to do with just who's the most popular and who gets hyped up more. So that I guess that's the main difference there. But anyway, I'm just
You
not a
bringing up
fan of the
Drake
last
May
couple.
on the show is the highlight of my day.
Go
ahead.
is he? Am I right? He's the new Patriots quarterback, isn't he?
Yeah.
Sir.
Yeah. I should know this, but we've only we're a few weeks behind on our NFL shows because we have like catch up shows each week in the UK. And time zones don't really allow for me to watch live games, although there is one right now playing
Right
in
now
London.
in London.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that? Jets versus who is it?
Jets versus Denver.
Denver. Okay. So I could watch it, but I'm choosing to be here with you.
Somehow the Jets are winning.
Well,
Right.
yeah, but Denver have been off the boil for so many years since Peyton went.
They just smacked around the freaking Eagles, and the Giants
Did they?
did a pee-pee on them after that.
Oh wow. Okay. Anyway, did
Yeah,
Jalen hurt
in the
after that game?
sports realm,
But
some of the
what's
things
that?
I got out of collecting sports
Mm.
probably about 6-7 years ago. I just grab a few little things here and there. I stopped collecting sets, stopped really, because as far as the elements that you have to deal with when in the off the field stuff, what that guy decides to delve in politically off the field can affect the value of your stuff, what he does
Or
business
physically.
wise, not to mention physically with his family
Yeah.
or Jesus.
Mhm.
And now all of a sudden so that's one of the elements with sports collecting that, and then trades.
It's true. I never thought of that.
The markets. Yeah, I've got to pay attention to the human. And now it's not just what he does, on the field, off the field. If he's a loose cannon, now that's a risk to my investment on that athlete.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of the things that I've never understood with sports, and I've talked about this before with entertainment cards or Marvel cards, at least. Spider-Man's the man, right? He's not going to tear his ACL anytime soon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's not.
So he's going to be Spider-Manning for quite some time. So even if it's a rookie that's the man for 5 years, he tears something the wrong way, his career's over, your investment is done.
Defensive coordinators are not going to figure out Wolverine over the next 5 years. It's not.
Yeah.
So you can go ahead and make a solid investment there. Venom's still going to bring them. It's not going to happen. Venom's not going to choose the wrong political affiliation, and all of a sudden, like the value of his stuff gets destroyed.
But you could get punished.
You could get hey, they're still getting in somehow, some way. They're still finding ways of infiltrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Now, that's not fair.
That's been coming up again.
The Punisher stuff drives me crazy because it's just becomes because try to choose my words. Set human decides to pull it in as a symbol for whatever their agenda is. It was not created. Every one of us knows that it was not created anything connected to that. Yeah. It has no evil ties. It is an awesome symbol of a superhero that has a cool, interesting, different story, and it comes from our childhoods.
A relatable story. Well, maybe not with the family being wiped out part, but yeah, you get the idea. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's none of it is negative or evil or bad or should be shunned or banned. And because a few people chose to learn, do the research, none of that should be banned. No Punisher stuff. And he should be out there and in the MCU and all that jazz.
No one does that research these days, Josh. That's the problem. It's social media, so it's knee jerk.
No, it's just a badass logo, and I'll use it for whatever I want because it's a badass logo.
Right, knee jerk reaction.
Okay, so I think the takeaways we've got from this episode are we're grumpy fuckers. It is just our opinion. At the end of the day, you may disagree. If you do, please drop a comment.
Man, we were some whiny bitches this episode.
We were some whiny bitches. We're going to be whiny bitches after this because we're going to go straight to Instagram and open a box of The Boys season 1 and 2 trading cards from Upper Deck. So because they're burning my fingers, man. But we have learnt that it's always good to check who you bring into the frat party, and it is always good to never trust someone who just looks at the last comp.
Yep, a lot of factors.
Massive generalization there, and definitely never trust the guy who Rohypnol's the women's netball team starts filming.
Jesus.
On that note, Josh is aghast that I went back there.
Yeah.
Josh is so aghast that I'm going to ask you to lead out this episode with our famous catchphrase and sign off, if you wouldn't mind, please, sir. I can push this button.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Instagram.
Everyone, enjoy collecting.
Miserable bastards.